Welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about this movie Takeout over on Tubi. It's a Tubi original, but before we get into that, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I appreciate all of you for coming by. But like I said, we're going to talk about Takeout. It's this tense horror thriller, not psychological or anything like that. It's basically when dark comedy meets horror, and then you have Takeout. And I'm not sure why they call the movie Takeout because the entire movie takes place in or around a diner, but although it does have this revolving door of customers that keep coming in, and we'll talk more about that as well, it's called Takeout because everybody literally does come in and order their food and take it out. So I guess that's why it's called Takeout, even though it's a diner. But fast-paced movie is, like I said, set entirely in a diner. Is focuses on this girl Nova and her coworkers as they're working the night shift, the late night shift, I should say, at a diner, 24-hour diner. At some point in this story, she's going to end up taking care of her sister and everybody else as well. But this movie basically is about three co-workers who get a little bit too nosy and they suspect one of their customers is a serial killer. So they just start basically doing a bunch of dumb things and trying to become investigators themselves because there's a reward for anybody who has information on the serial killer. And it's basically the entire movie is basically you're trapped with a killer type vibe. And like I said, it's a mix with dark humor, horror. We get some kills. I wouldn't say a bunch of gore, but we get some good, clean kills and pretty good story, pretty good movie. So like I was saying before, the story unfolds very rapidly, introducing Nova showing up to work late. Her two co-workers are already there. They introduce her boss. They introduce her stepfather, I believe. They introduce a teacher. They introduce this weird guy that they position to be the serial killer. They introduce a blind date that he meets up with at the diner. They introduce a lot of characters in this movie, which I will say adds more suspicion to the story, and I think that's kind of what drove the story forward. Because you just like we didn't know for a while who the killer was in this movie, and with the continuous addition of characters throughout the movie, it's just like we're focusing on this one person, but it clearly is not this person because they're not going to give up the killer basically 8 to 10 minutes into the movie. It's a good hour and a half of fast paced, kind of, I wouldn't call it action horror, but it's fast paced. The story is moving. It doesn't have a lot of dull or lull moments where it's just like, oh my God, I can't wait for this to be over. But it's very, very well paced. You have local law enforcement that comes into play in this, and then honestly, they're just basically there for comic relief. They don't do anything. They both end up dead, and they're honestly not even that funny. So calling them comic relief has probably been nice to them. But classic horror comedy type cops, I would say, you know, out of shape, not gonna catch anybody if they had to catch them on a foot race type people, showing up at a late night diner, basically trying to use their force to get free food because what else do cops in remote areas at late night diners that are patrolling a nowhere town, even though there's a serial killer on loose, what do they have to do? Let's go eat. But the climax of this movie basically packs in all of everything at one time. And when I say all of everything, I'm referring to bodies. There are a lot of bodies that start dropping. They start dropping quickly. And I guess with that starting to happen, you start to eliminate who the killer could be because this isn't one of those movies where the killer faked his death and he's going to come back or whatnot. Once the killer reveals itself, and I'll just go ahead and tell you that it's the college professor that seems to know everybody. One of the cops was his student. Two of the people that work at the diner were students or former students. And his whole story, just to kind of show you how they introduce the professor, is I'm a professor. I'm going to a late night diner with my briefcase to grade papers. They never indicate what time it is, but late night diner kind of suggests that this is probably after midnight and probably before 4 or 5 a.m. Why would a professor or a teacher who probably has to work the next day, depending on what day of the week this is, because that's not really given either, but why would he be at a late night diner of all places to grade papers. Most professors have offices at schools and, so while it's a believable story because, some people just can't sleep at night, or maybe I just want to change the scenery because I could work better, or maybe this place has good coffee, so I'll go here and do it, or maybe I know some people that work there, so I can talk to them while I'm doing this and, stay awake. But that's basically the story behind a professor. Like nothing glamorous, nothing like, oh my God, he's this, whatever, because he's kind of out of shape as well. But he's what do they call the killer? The doll keeper is what the killer's called in this movie, just so you know. The professor is the doll keeper. He kills his victims and leaves these little creepy little Barbie dolls behind, and that's basically it. But in my opinion, this movie delivered some fast-paced horror action type thrills with it's very character driven, even though the characters are stupid to a degree. They're stupid. So we'll just leave it at that. The twist with the professor being the killer or the serial killer, after assuming that it was this dark guy with curly hair and, you know, he gave all the creepy looks and vibes of a killer in a movie. But that was, in my opinion, that was a clear, throw off. Like, this isn't the killer. Like, I picked up on that immediately. Like, this guy is not going to be the killer. The movie's only been on for 10 minutes and you're trying to tell me that this dude is a killer. I mean, I guess it could be, but doubtful. But go check it out on Tubi. The movie's called Takeout. It came out this year. It actually came out a few weeks ago, so it's fairly new. But go give it a watch. Quick hour and a half. You'll enjoy it, minus the commercials. But you will enjoy the movie. I guarantee you will. If you don't, drop a comment. Let me know why you didn't. If you do, let me know what you think about in the comments as well, And should they make a sequel of this movie? Because Tubi has a thing with making sequels of their pretty decent horror movies, at least horrors and thrillers. We've got Adopted 2 that just came out. We had Terror Train that had a sequel. So Tubi does this with their originals, especially ones that are pretty good. So while we probably didn't ask for a Takeout 2, we're definitely more than likely, I promise you, we're going to get a Takeout 2 probably sometime next year because their sequels come out pretty quickly. But with that being said, thank you for watching my review of Takeout. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you for coming to the channel, and I will see you next time. Bye.